Painting with Menoth John is presented in Super Legitivision. Super Legitivision, the future of podcasting. It's .com.
Hello, I'm
Menoth John.
and I'd like to welcome you. First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation for you to drag out your
miniatures
and paint along with us each week. Let's go over to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. Start out by believing here. You can almost paint with anything. All you have to do is practice.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second to the last Sunday night extravaganza. You are watching Painting with Menoth John. That is what it says on the Glove and Boots computer over there. I am, of course, your host, Menoth John. And with us tonight, possibly, is John Spencer. We'll see if he was having a lot of Skype problems. He's having a hell of a time with his Skype applications since he got his new computer. But we have faith that before the start of the new show, he will have that all squared away. With me, up in the catbird seat, we have our usual person, our Mr. Irrational Gonzo. What? And of course, with us tonight, we are very blessed and honored to have with us the one, the only, Mr. David D.C. Carl.
Hey, everybody.
I am super thrilled to have you with us here. DC reached out to me earlier in the week and said, hey, would love to be on the show before you hang it up. And I was like, well, what the fuck you doing Sunday? Let's do it. Yeah, we made it happen. So thank you very much for being with us, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled that it was able to work out.
Yeah, super awesome. Well, folks, we've got a very special, very action-packed show. I get not really. We're just gonna have David on. We're gonna shoot the shit for a while. I'm gonna paint some fucking pirates. I'm down to. I've got them base coated. I've got them washed. We're gonna do. I'm gonna put the crotch cam on, and we'll go ahead and we'll paint some of them things up, and then the magic number will be 1. I am hoping Mr. John Spencer will be joining us. Do you have any update from him, Gonzo, as to whether or not his restart is working?
Right now, he had to do some restarts. There seems to be a problem with the camera working with him nicely, so he's beat it up and smacked it around a bit and called it bitch. So he's trying some other stuff.
We'd like to remind you that Painting with Menoth John does in no way condone the beating of electronic items. Folks, electronic abuse is an issue that we stand fully in. We're looking forward to our new robot overlords. We even got a cyborg on the show this week. So, we're ready to go. So anyway, we are super welcome to have DC on. We're going to talk about what's been going on in your life, David, and kind of catch up a little bit while I do some painting, and it'll be super sweet and totally legit. Sounds good. But before we can do that, of course, we need to talk about what we're drinking, because literally this has been a show. It's a drinking show with a painting problem. I'm going to be drinking tonight from jolly old England. I hear that's what they say over there in the UK. They call it jolly old England. We have our good friend Kevin Bryant from the podcasting world. He sent us Spitfire Gold. This is a wonderful beer from Britain's oldest brewery. It says 1698. That's before. I don't know if is that metric time, Gonzo, or is that like regular? It's English, right? So that's the real year, right?
Well, it's quantum physics combined with metric time. That's the problem.
Wow.
I mean, it can't be older than America.
Well, America. The world didn't exist.
Especially not in July.
The world didn't exist until Jesus founded America back in 1492, right? So there you go, America. That's what public schools taught me. Liberty University, you can take a class in how America was invented by God on the 8th day when he was resting. So anyway, we're gonna be drinking the Spitfire. Gonzo, what do you got?
Gonna get a shot of Maker's Mark in, and I'm also gonna drink a Spitfire with you.
Hot damn, DC, what are you having for a beverage tonight?
Well, I have in a old classic Gen Con mug here some Magner's Irish cider with a little
Nice.
bit of a kick that I added myself.
Hot damn. So on behalf of David, DC, Carl, joining us here on the second to the last Sunday night extravaganza, hey, Ron.
Ron.
It's delicious. So before we continue on with the show and we get on to what the hell's going on in DC's world, I do want to mention some more details, folks. If you are interested in coming to JonCon, that's different than Gen Con, JonCon, September 8th and 9th here in the beautiful Bell City of Racine, Wisconsin, you can get over to PwMenothJohn.com. That is PwMenothJohn. The PW stands for painting with. We're going to be putting all of the updates up there because we have a blog site. We should probably use it. And we have the events listed up there that when they're going to happen. We have confirmed it is going to be at the Moose Lodge in Racine. And we have confirmed that they're going to allow us to have it for free so we can maximize our profits, much like the Ferengi. So we are going to be, right now, as of just a little while ago, we have 3 people signed up for the coffee and beer tasting, which will be taking place on Friday at Casa John. And that means that there are 7 spots left. And as you'll remember, those will be, we're going to be having some fine beers and some very special reserve coffees that we are going to be tasting and talking about enjoying their taste. Ladies and gentlemen, from parts unknown, we have with us the mighty right hand of the podcast, Mr. John Spencer.
God, Skype better work this time, or
Yeah.
I'm going to find somebody and make them hurt.
There you go.
Traveling the long way through the dark web. Oh, spoke too soon.
Dark web sucked him right back. The dark web doesn't give up; it's dead. That's what I hear. Donald Trump
Well,
taught
the
me
dark
that.
web giveth, and the dark web taketh away.
Exactly. So remember, September 8th, 9th, get over there to pwmenothjohn.com. If you want to come to JonCon, you just email me at pwmenothjohn@gmail.com. I will get back to you. You can let me know how many days you want, and we'll get you set up for how much you'll need to pay. It's $10 for each day. There are a limited number of seats for the Friday extravaganza because it's at my house. We'll be doing that stuff. We'll have some tables set up if you want to get a little gaming in while you're there. Shenanigans. You can pet my dog. You can see the cats. You can meet my kids. It'll be super sweet and totally legit. And the best part is you're going to be supporting folks that don't have enough to eat. And that's really what JonCon's all about. It's about getting some food in the mouths of those people that don't have enough each and every day. So get on over there, pwmenothjohn.com, and give till it hurts like a fuck. We're also going to be getting a GoFundMe page going for it. We will also have an event page on the Facebooks. So that's all going to get set up this week because I'm going to England for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to China for 2 weeks after that, and then I get back and it's like fucking JonCon's here. So better get my shit together now. Anyhow, so there you go. That's kind of the business section. Yes, Gonzo.
Your live account, Windows Live or Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Did you restart that?
I thought I did. I'll go ahead and restart it again. I'll give it the business.
Let's do so, sir.
Facebook
Give it the
sucks
business.
my dick. Facebook is garbage. I think the only reason Facebook Live exists is to show hard to see footage of shitty concerts. There we go. Let's try that again.
All right. You do have people that watch it there. That's the reason why I'm asking.
No, that's cool.
I would love to see DC's pretty face one more time.
I would love for those people to be able to see DC's pretty face one more time. So, I think at this point, Gonzo, we should probably switch over to the crotch cam and swing that bad boy in. Crotch cam, party time, excellent, woo! Crotch cam, bring it, coming in there. Whoops, narrowly avoided my crotch on that one. All right, so here we go, and we're gonna tip the light in here. And I'm gonna paint me some goddamn pirates while we start to talk to DC. DC, you are no longer in Seattle.
No, we've actually lived here for just over 2 months now. Took a nice long trek across the whole country Wound up. I don't want to exaggerate. We didn't drive 3,000 miles. It was only 2,997 miles.
Holy, that's a prime number, isn't it?
Wow, I should know the answer to that offhand, but I'm afraid I don't. Could be.
Oh, there you go. So,
but it was a long trip, is what it was.
That is a long
drove,
trip.
all the way through Washington, of course, and then nice and quick through Idaho, Montana, just across the whole America. There.
America.
And it was a bit of a stressful time, but also kind of an interesting break from the usual routine. Driving a truck that had a 26-foot trailer on it, plus the cab, plus towing a car. So we estimate almost 50 feet of vehicle there that I was maneuvering across the whole country.
Holy cow!
And we had ourselves a bit of an adventure.
Wow, that is amazing.
Did you?
Good, buddy.
I was going to ask did you take any time to do sightseeing? Because when Kim and I did that from Kansas City, we took like 3 days to do it, and it was a blast. I'd do it in a heartbeat again.
Yeah, we did stop for 1 day to visit Jess's brother and sister-in-law in Bozeman, Montana, which I was shocked to see just how quickly that area is growing. Apparently someone put out a memo that is the new place to live, because there are houses going up like crazy in their area. But we visited them for a bit. It was the right time that we watched some Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2,
Nice.
Went on a bit of a hike. So yeah, that was our 1 day off. But other than that, just solid driving. We hit a tornado. We hit another major storm. Lots of good times, but we made it. We made it all the way out here to Tegakay, South Carolina, which is right near Charlotte.
So when you were hitting the tornado with that thing, were you like on the highway and stuff? And oh, look at that funny funnel-shaped cloud over there.
Well, we didn't see literally the tornado. We weren't like turning into storm chasers or something with a moving truck. But there were tornado warnings on the radio. And we did see a semi that had been blown over into the ditch between the roads going both ways. But fortunately, we didn't have any serious issues or anything. We just saw a lot of wind and a lot of great lightning. A nice light show for us that night as we were traveling.
Nice.
And so get a lot of lightning storms in Seattle, so it was a change of pace. And then South Carolina has decided to keep that trend going. It feels like we've had a nice big summer storm about once a week or so. Just today had lots of rain just beating against the house and just sounded really relaxing. Good time to just read a book or something, but instead I played on the computer because that's what I do.
So what now, I mean, you're from St. Louis. So I know why you would end up in Seattle with all your time that you spent at Privateer. What brought you to the Carolinas?
Well, so I started out in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
When you get me hanging out with the guys from GTS at Gen Con or something, you'll hear the Jersey boy come out. Man. Especially after a couple of drinks. But then for work, I wound up moving to the Cincinnati area. And then for a different job, still in the engineering field, I wound up moving to the St. Louis area. And then during those jobs, I was kind of during my free time in a freelance capacity and contract capacity, I was already getting involved in the gaming world. Mm-hmm. And then when I got the opportunity to work full-time at Privateer Press, I moved out to Bellevue and lived there for almost 9 years, 8.5 years, something like that, out there in Bellevue, Washington. But during the last couple years, as you know, I kind of went off on my own as Clockwork Phoenix Games, doing contracting and stuff for different folks, for Privateer, for Steamforged, also a little bit lesser known for Ninja Division. Yep. The last game I worked on with them is coming out this year at Gen Con, so that'll be fun.
What do we know? Has that game been announced, DC?
It has been announced now. Yeah, it's interesting because it is both Ninja Division's first children's game or game marketed to children, as well as my own first children's game. It's called Rainbow Nights.
Okay.
It's a real, just kind of quick, casual, fun game meant for kids, but fun for adults as well. It has kind of almost an Adventure Time style of artwork, and the intro and parts of the rules are written almost in a Dr. Seuss-like fashion.
Nice.
So yeah, definitely a change of pace. I feel like being able to check off that box, there's just so many different things I've now had the privilege and opportunity to work on. A deck building game, a dungeon crawl board game, or several now actually, miniatures games, skirmish and war game level, and kind of even smaller scale, big box board games, smaller board games, now a children's game, a deduction game, lots of different things, and it's been great. And role playing games.
I feel like we're going to have to give this a with special cameo appearance by John Spencer to this episode. So
at random moments.
Yep. So of the different genres and groups, which have been your favorite to work on?
I hate to give a cop-out answer, but I'm afraid I'm going to. The stuff that I've enjoyed the most comes down as much to the team as it does to the genre of the game itself.
Makes sense.
Because it can make, you guys know this from whatever jobs you happen to be in, the people can make so much of a difference in terms of the overall experience that you have.
Yep.
No matter what sort of work you're doing, or even in gaming world. When you're playing a game of whatever miniatures game you're playing right now, your opponent can make all the difference.
Yep.
In a role-playing game, your group can make all the difference. So while there are plenty of game genres that I can point to as enjoying, the parts that stand out are really just some of the phenomenal people I've had the opportunity of working with, both from the standpoint of game development, writing and editing, even on kind of the artwork and graphic design side. There's so many great folks in this industry, and I just really do feel privileged to have had the part I've had in it over the past decade or so.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the things I do. I mean, I think, it's been no secret that, kind of what my job is these days at Starbucks is I'm working on designing a lot of these new reserve roasteries that Starbucks is putting in. And, we've got the first one there in Seattle, and I had the luxury of starting that up, and it was a lot of fun. And it was primarily based on the super group of people that I had the chance to work with on that job is why I went on to say, I want to work on all of these. So I feel you 100%. Gonzo, you were saying?
I'm kind of curious about what RPG, if you can talk about it, because I'm a huge old school RPG fan. I mean, I played when you bought the D&D box and you had to color in the dice so you could see the stuff. And I mean, I collect RPGs like crazy just because it's who I am. So any RPG that I know DC's working on, I want to look into.
Well, it's no secret because it's right in the credits that I've had some work done on the IK RPG. Mm-hmm. But the first RPG product I worked on actually got canceled. I was the contractor who was creating the Buffy the Vampire Slayer D20 RPG.
Oh.
They had a D10, I think it was Unity system or something. That might not quite be the right term, but something like that. And they wanted to do a D20 version. So I was starting to create and convert all of this big, broad Buffy the Vampire Slayer, almost open gaming license 3.5 sort of style game, and was having a lot of fun with it. And then the plug got pulled on the project for financial reasons.
Didn't that end up, Gonzo, over at Margaret Weiss? Wasn't that the name?
Buffy?
Yeah, didn't Buffy end up over there?
I'm not sure.
Okay, anyway.
I'm not sure if Margaret Weiss' team picked it up or not.
Yeah, Eden Studios is the one who had it at the time I was working on it a couple decades ago now.
Got it.
But are you working on anything new or current RPG-wise?
Not at the moment. At the moment, I am working on, let's see, About 3 board games, 2 miniatures games, and a card game or 2.
Wow.
Any that you're allowed to talk about? Or
Well, the ones I can talk about are the ones that are out and are kind of in progress. Working with the teams that are on the Guild Ball stuff for in the miniatures game side of things, and then also on Dark Souls. We're really trying to finish up the very last few things to get Wave 2 shipping production started, or continuing. It's already started, but to get the last details done so that everyone gets their Dark Souls pledges at the time they're supposed to, at the time that's been announced. So doing a lot of work on that board game. And then also working on stuff that's still to come for Dark Souls and still to come for Guild Ball. And then new games after that that will be announced. One might get announced at Gen Con and others a little later in the year. Yeah, one will get announced at Gen Con. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I like the comment, and a partridge in a pear tree, because that's what it feels like sometimes. A lot of irons in the fire.
Cool, brother.
I actually had kind of a serious question for DC because of where everything going. Recently, GW has been bringing out erratas to their games quickly, and recently they had a tournament where people abuse the rules, per se, to get what they want with the game, where they changed up and you can take a ton of all these aircraft and just beat the crap out of each other. And I know recently at Adepticon, you had to make a quick change to some stuff on a tournament scene. How does that work from your point of view? Because I know that you're behind the scenes guy. How does that affect the way you keep and develop the game continuing on from there?
What was the Adepticon thing you're talking about?
The Adepticon thing was the tournament people abusing setting up pairings and the way I'm not going to go into details, but I'm sure you remember now what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
About having to change things right at the to benefit the game, not because of something someone did, but to benefit the whole aspect of the game.
Right. So not the reason I was confused for a second there was because the Adepticon stuff that I was actually TOing was the more casual formats. So I didn't deal with that as directly as some of the other folks at the show, but I do know what you're referring to now.
Mm-hmm.
And this plays in a lot with one of the topics that I really wanted to discuss tonight, which is the way that we approach games and kind of the casual side of things, the competitive side of things. I think the first true miniatures game tournament I played in was a 40K second edition tournament. And that system, for those who remember it, was not a good system for tournaments, was not a competitive system, didn't have any sort of system in place to make sure that the time was fair for both players, or that the deployment was fair, the terrain was fair. It was just, you show up, you play, you listen to whatever the person organizing the tournament says. But other than that, it was a very casual sort of environment. And I think as a community over the past 20 years or so, we've really shifted towards a far more competitive mindset, competitive style of approaching these games. And I don't think it's even specific to miniatures games. We can look at the same things for computer games and almost like arcade game style stuff, where you go from the old days of having a Street Fighter 2 competition with a dozen guys in an arcade on the boardwalk to now broadcast on ESPN with thousands and thousands of people in an arena and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, watching worldwide. Gaming has become serious business. And we as gamers are starting to kind of demand that a different view and a different style to our games. And there's pros and cons to it. And I think that striking the correct balance is something that's a challenge both from a player side and from a corporate side. And I would also say from a social media side with things like podcasts and stuff. One of the reasons I like this show so much is that you guys approach things where it doesn't have to be the absolute 1% better than something else is the only thing you should ever possibly consider. No, you can try different things. You can have some fun with it. You can be creative. Because when that creativity is gone, that's when I start to lose a bit of interest myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. When everything becomes cookie cutter, like, oh, all right, I know I'm bringing this because this is the only thing that works in this game, or the only thing that's going to work in this game. And that kind of, yeah, I agree with you. There's been a problem between the competitive nature, the casual player, or casual nature, and just playing the game. Now, if you're going to go to a tournament, and you're going to want to win the top seat, you're going to have to expect that 1% model type thing going on. But if you're a competitive player that can figure out some weird, strange stuff that works for you, it can change up the way you play the game completely.
And I think we've always stood for on this show that the number one thing was that there's a lot more good in these games than what they're given credit for a lot of times. A lot of times,
yeah.
if you look at some of the really top players and what they do, they're bringing, what makes them amazing is that they're using things that a lot of other people have never seen before. And by gosh, you know what? They make them work. But, I think that sometimes even those players will fall a little bit guilty to saying, well, that's unplayable garbage. And then, probably one of the things that the podcasting has done a bit of a disservice to the community is that it's kind of helped perpetuate that thought process that only these lists are good, and if you're not playing these lists, you're at a distinct disadvantage. I'll be very honest. As much as we yell the word Ron on this show, I have never been able to unlock that dude as a caster. Why? Because he doesn't fit with how I think. So he's a wonderful caster, but he doesn't fit how I think about moving models and unlocking different things. So he's not the greatest caster for me. So
yeah, well, and we could have a whole episode or a whole series about play style and player preferences. And there are people out there who will tell you, oh, there's no such thing as play style. None of that matters. It's all just math. And
boy, I disagree with that.
On one level, what they're trying to say is something I can understand and appreciate. But when you add the human element, as we've got in the chat room right now, we've got people saying, I prefer the casual side, or I want to start each game with a joke and get people laughing, or some people want all pieces in the game to be power pieces. Like we're approaching it from different angles because we've all got that human nature. And something that I've found a lot in Guild Ball is there are just teams that some of us, even on the development staff for Steamforged Games, just kind of approach a bit differently. And we need to remember that and kind of keep that broad perspective so that we know our own limitations as humans.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, what was it? The Dunian, where everybody took, was it in the Troll Bloods? It was brain's fried from all the stuff I've done today. The one theme list where it was all
the Kalantra one?
Yeah, EE.
No, not EE. The other one.
In Mark II or Mark III?
2.
Mark II.
Yeah.
I mean, Elemental Evolution was the big one.
The stone one.
The ones with all the rune shapers.
Rune shapers, yes.
Yeah,
Everyone was like, you have to take rune shapers. You have to take the rune shaper list. You have to take the rune shaper list. And I put it on the table, played it. Couldn't get it to work for shit.
Yep.
And I hated it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Runes of War is...
Runes of War, there you go.
Yep.
I ditched it, and I figured out my own Calandra list I like, and it was balls fantastic for me, and I was able to work it. And I was like, this is mine. They were like, well, you're stupid. And I'm like, It's working. I'm winning.
Yeah, I mean, I am in the same camp. I never was able to figure out Runes of War. I mean, I would have people in my local meta who would just say it's the most overpowered piece of this, that, and the other thing, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing then, because I just would trip over my own feet on that list. But there were other things that I played Trolls for a year that I did find that I liked. I mean, I was playing Jarl with fire frogs and all kinds of stuff, and we had Fire Mountain, and it was super sweet, and that list rocked. And you know, like we've talked about, DC, we played it our way, and
Yeah.
and that's what made it super sweet. So, anyhow,
But yeah, I agree. There's way too many people out there that go, no, this list is trash because you're not taking X, Y, Z, and A, B, C. And I go, well, I don't like this because of this, and I'm not going to take 10 Marauders because I need flexibility in my list, because if someone comes up with something else that is able to counteract 10 Marauders, I'm screwed.
not for nothing, I'm not taking 10 Marauders because I don't want to paint a unit of Marauders. Fuck that. I don't want to paint these.
So
I don't want to paint these 6 pirates, let alone a fucking unit of Marauders.
But I mean,
yeah,
there's
there's a
a
reason
lot
I
of
got
that.
tired of painting units and
Yeah.
lots of the same stuff for a while. Painting a team of all individuals has been a nice change of pace. I'm almost ready to go back to painting a few units here and there, but having a whole team of characters is so much easier on me as a painter.
Those
It doesn't feel like you're chaining them out. It's not like it's an assembly line.
Right.
yeah, the Guild Ball models are wonderful to paint. They really are. There's a lot of detail to them. There's a lot of character to them. I've enjoyed painting my 2 armies that I have, my 2 guilds. There we go.
Yeah, there's so many good comments being brought up in the comments right now too, because people are talking about different things that are perceived as strongest versus what people want to use. There's also kind of an implied discussion, at least a little bit, going on about different metas being so different. Like if you look, and that's why Privateer Press, Steamforged Games, a lot of companies try to get playtesters from broad metas, try to get some US folks, some European folks, some Australian folks, because they're barely playing the same game.
Yeah.
The things that they see as kind of the givens of playing this game aren't even always the same.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so having someone who is a good playtest coordinator, who understands the different metas that are out there, and who's able to communicate well with the group leads, there's just so much to it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you look at like the European meta, they're playing that shit with metric dice. And you know, you get that all the you know, you got 10s, 20s, 100s. You don't even know what the hell you got going on, and then you're supposed to translate all that. Man, I'll tell you what, that's a hard job. There we go.
Well, I mean, it's like coming up and playing in, you know, qualifiers and stuff. You expect, oh, there's going to be a Ghost Fleet, there's going to be this, going to be that. But then you go over, like, to the West Coast, and they're playing nothing but huge bases and double Colossals or double, you know, Battle Engine. And you're like, well, shit, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it changes wherever you go and whatever you play.
So we got a question in the comments here. DC, how does rules creation relate to model design? And one of the things that is just fascinating to me is what people want versus what they think they want and say they want. Earlier in this thread of posts here, somebody said power gamers want all of their models to be queens from chess, in chess terms, to be like that super powerful piece on the board, capable of everything. But that's not really what's true. You could easily argue that power gamers think they want all of their pieces to be queens. But if you think about a game of chess, for anyone who's played even very casually, if you imagine that all your pieces are replaced with queens, it's not actually a more interesting game. It's just queens killing queens until someone gets a slight advantage and is able to get checkmate. Not an interesting game at all. And so in miniatures games terms, people think they want what they see someone else has. So
that's the truth.
This might hit a little close to home, but Retribution players think they want a whole unit of big, heavy, Man-O-War-ish Shail battle mages.
Man, that'd be a terrible idea.
Well, some people think it's a great idea. Some people think it's a terrible idea. There are enough people out there, though, who see the grass on the other side of the fence, see that supposedly greener grass, and they want the same things. They want loads of arc nodes for Khador. They want plentiful Bonejack arc nodes for Khador. They want loads of heavy infantry for Signar, and on and on. But it's what they think they want, not what they truly want, because you don't want to reach a point where you're really just playing blue soldiers against red soldiers that have no personality, no real theme to them, because it gets boring. There's no interest elements going on there. You want the warcasters to have character. You want the different armies, the different factions to be characterful. It applies to War Machine that we were discussing earlier. It applies to a game like Guild Ball. It applies to basically any miniatures game you can name. That unique character, and coming back to Side Hustle Seth's question, that unique character is really what needs to drive the design in the design stages of things. Now, granted, at some point, you have to kind of make this cutoff and say, okay, here are the concepts from a design standpoint that we definitely want to be part of this model. We definitely want this element. We definitely want this theme. But now it kind of flips over to the responsibility of development assets on the team, to play testing, to analysis. You've moved past that creative design stage and into the development balancing stage.
Yeah, and you know, you're taking like Retribution for an example, and I know that a lot of folks that play Retribution wish it hit harder, but there are ways that you can get Retribution to hit plenty hard enough if you put the right combinations on the table and you put things together in the right way. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't trade our infantry for anybody in the whole damn game. Man, that infantry's so damn good right now.
Well, and I think one of the biggest mistakes a company can make in their miniatures game is to get rid of weaknesses, because that's what players say they want or think they want. Once you've gotten rid of the weaknesses of this faction and this faction and this faction and this faction, well, then you've basically got all the same faction again, where everyone has the same strengths and the same weaknesses, because that's kind of how you've developed it. It's the strengths as well as the weaknesses that really give such a personality to the different teams.
Yeah.
And we can see aspects of that in War Machine, in Guild Ball, in X-Wing, in Rivet Wars, in Batman miniatures, on and on. You want that personality.
Yep, absolutely. So it makes playing the different factions fun.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you don't want all armies to be the same, because I mean, what's the point? Like I said, it's red versus blue then. It's all the same. I'm just gonna move. Who moves first? I do. Okay, I lose. I mean,
yeah,
pretty much how it is. There's got to be variety. There's got to be change. There's got to be weaknesses. There's got to be strengths. Because if not, it's boring as shit. It's the best way to put it.
Yep, for sure. Good question, Seth. And DC, I want to thank you very much for taking questions from the audience, because quite frankly, I can't concentrate. I'm trying to get these damn pirates done, and we need somebody to help kind of keep us on the rails here. Appreciate it.
Well, if you get them all done today, what are you going to do next week?
Oh, drink. We're doing Retribution next week. It's gonna be good times. I'm just gonna gush over Gareth for literally 90 minutes. That guy. Oh my God, that guy. Gareth is so good now.
What did you see?
Follow-up question here from Seth then about the difference between this sort of character development, characterful development, when we look at army scale games versus individual model scale skirmishy games or games like Guild Ball where it's just a small team of dudes. I think we can even extend that. I mean, granted, I know we're mostly here to listen to and talk about miniatures content, but you can take that beyond to card games, to board games. Like, how do you inject character and how do you make it the correct type of character for the medium you're using? It's just like when people are doing different types of painting or different types of sculpture, you've got to be very mindful of your medium. Not that I am trying to compare miniatures game design to fine art or anything. I consider myself more of a number cruncher than an artist, just kind of taking the medium that I have and creating something that hopefully people find interesting and want to play and want to enjoy. But in terms of large scale armies versus skirmish scale, it is definitely different. You want to approach it from the standpoint of that's more zoomed out or more zoomed in. When you have an individual Guild Ball model, because there are so few of them on the table, if I pick up one model's card, I should be able to read that card and, without even knowing what guild it's from, be able to tell you what guild it's from. Say, you know, this model, because of its playbook, it kind of could be one of these few guilds because of its traits, because of its stats, because of its hit point value, that all of these things kind of start forming an identity. And that identity can be this individual character at the individual character level, where everyone's a solo, everyone's a character. At the War Machine and Hordes level, you really do want to step back a step. And what are the Khadoran Warjacks known for and capable of? What defines them and distinguishes them? And then what do their units have as defining, distinguishing characteristics, both strengths and weaknesses? And then taking kind of an opposite end of the spectrum, well, okay, we go over to Circle. What are kind of the defining characteristics of their war beasts?
Broken as shit. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, it's interesting how perspectives are so different too. People were talking earlier in the comments about when somebody sees something come out in their own faction forum and they're like, oh, you know, this is no good. And then someone else is like, I think it's pretty good. And over time, eventually, one opinion or another will win out. Plenty of times I've had people come up to me at a convention or something where a new model was just released, and one person will say, oh, I can't believe this came out like this. It's so strong. It's so much more powerful than these other things. And someone else will come up and say, this model's no good. It's not nearly as good as this. And so you have these two divergent opinions. And over time, one of them will prove at least slightly more correct than the other, unless the balance is truly dead center. But typically, it will either be a little bit strong or a little bit weak, and that whole completely broken or completely unplayable is not typically what we see in reality.
Well,
but then also the cross-faction opinions being so different, like saying that, oh, well, Circle is broken. Well, maybe in the person you play against the most plays Circle really well. Maybe in your particular store, there's strong Circle players. Maybe you just plain hate Circle. Maybe you're too good with Circle. It can mean anything.
Well, you know, and I tell you, DC, when I've seen you at conventions and I've seen people come up to you and kind of make those kind of comments about models and things like that, oh, that's broken as hell and all this kind of stuff, I've always appreciated your response to that. You'd always get a smile on your face and just kind of not really shrug it off, but you'd always have, well, you know, we worked really hard to kind of get this to be kind of the way it is, and you know, I appreciate your comment. And and then as the day went on and Werewolf started, maybe a little bit more candidness came out.
Yeah. Well, with Werewolf comes comes something else too, I think.
Social lubricant. So.
Yeah, I do have to admit, every once in a while, there would be someone who would just make me, at the end of the conversation, shake my head a little bit and go, man, I wish I could go to that guy's job and criticize him for an hour.
No, I understand, man. You've always handled it with great amount of grace and sense of humor. And I am so not interested in painting these models. I am doing such a shitty job. Holy cow.
I think you're just putting off on.
It looks like you're getting some good highlights in there.
I'm highlighting the fuck out of these things. They'll look fine from like 6, 7, 8 feet away. These are not anything that Seth Watkins will ever see. There are models I'm proud of. These are not them. So, anyhow, well, that's cool. So, any more other questions that we had coming up? Paint like your life depends on it. That's funny. I'm fucked then. Well, I'll tell you what. I think it's time for another drink. I'm going to bust open this second Spitfire Gold. Are you into, as we brace ourselves as we move into the next part of this podcast? How are you doing, Gonzo, on your booze?
I'm good on my booze.
Okay.
I've just been kind of, I had to eat too, so I was doing that on the process. I'll do another question for DC, because I like questioning DC.
Yeah, question.
What are you excited? What are you excited about coming up from other companies and other things? What other products you're like, oh, this looks like it's gonna be kind of cool and kind of neat?
There's always like I try and pay a lot of attention to Kickstarter as well as public releases. So there's always a bunch of things that I'm more or less excited about at any given time. Mm-hmm. It's interesting though. Sometimes they really pay off, and sometimes it comes out and I'm like, oh, is that it? Is that is that all this is? Where maybe it looks really pretty, but doesn't have a whole lot of like meat to it. So I think I'm going to twist your question just a little bit and talk about a couple of ones that are already out, since I know my opinions on them, not just my anticipation. Mm-hmm. X versus Minions. Have you seen that one yet, Gonzo?
Mm-mm.
So Mechs versus Minions was a bit of a labor of love from the folks over at Riot Games, makers of League of Legends.
Oh, okay.
They've got some of their characters in this game, and it is a gorgeous game. Just open up the box and glance at it, or just glance at it there on your Google image search. That looks like you're already doing.
Someone at MomCon, I think, was playing it or had it out.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
It looks so good, and I do want to caution people: never expect a actual game company, miniature like a board game company, to put out a game that looks this good for this price, because the price is a bit of a smokescreen. They're not paying a distributor, they're not paying a retailer, they're just selling direct. So the price tag on the game is a bit of a illusion, let's say, in a game store that would probably be a $300 game.
Wow.
Just so many miniatures, such high quality components, like metal coins for things they didn't really need metal coins for, plastic gem tokens for things that easily could have just been cardboard. Like, just a beautiful, beautiful game that also plays very well. Not super complicated, but also not too simple. Great balance of being able to teach someone how to play versus someone who's already played it being able to have fun with it. And it has an ongoing campaign system, so you do kind of feel driven to play the next mission. Oh, just one more mission. It captures for me that old school turn-based strategy game syndrome on computers, that one more turn, and then it's 3 a.m. and you can definitely fall into that trap with Mechs versus Minions.
So you as a game designer have to be looking at that level of presentation going, God damn it, you're making all this look bad. Stop it.
Yeah, there is a little of that. it comes up sometimes in Kickstarter too, because in Kickstarter again, you're not covering the costs of the distributor or the retailer, because when you buy a game, a little bit of that money goes to the game developer for future products and to pay their employees and stuff like that. But also a decent chunk of the money goes into just what does it take to produce the game? What does it take to ship the game, to distribute the game, to keep the game store open, to pay their employees, to give them enough profit to buy a new game to then sell that game. Like there's so many different individual little components to it to consider. And something like this, or some Kickstarter campaigns kind of are able to kind of jump that line a little bit. And in this case, though, they produced something so incredible, I've got to tip my hat rather than grumble too loudly.
Yeah, because I saw some people, I think it was at MomCon, that were playing it and watched it. And it looked like a lot of fun, and everything looked really cool. All the pieces, the boards, everything was pretty neat. So, any video games you're looking forward to?
Ooh, looking forward to. Definitely ones I've been playing. Like just today, I've been playing a bit of the Necromancer release for Diablo 3. Haven't been playing quite as much Diablo lately, but wanted to give that a try since I was an old school Necromancer fan back in the day. And it's interesting. I think Blizzard does a lot of neat stuff. Also been playing a little bit of online various card games. The one that I like a fair bit is called Faria. It is a hex-based CCG. So not only do you have that kind of classic element that's like Magic the Gathering or something, but you also have a strong positional element. So your mana curve becomes very important in terms of you're then able to maneuver lower cost guys quicker than waiting for enough mana to cast bigger cost guys. But as someone who works on games all the time, I do have a hard time approaching games without analyzing them. I'm always kind of thinking about the gears turning behind the scenes, and what are the really smart things that they did? What are the things that they did that kind of build on past success? What are the innovations that we can see?
What is there a game out there that lately that you've played that you just go, wow, that's an amazing design?
Physical game, video game?
Yeah, why don't we start with a physical game and then let's move on to a video game too? Because that'd be two topics. That means we don't have to think as much.
Well, I will. The physical game that I'm going to say, they did some really interesting things, like in terms of that innovative design element. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. It's not out yet. It is a Kickstarter called Aegis.
Okay.
That is about the theme of it is that we each play a team of 5 robots, but these are Voltron style combining robots.
Okay.
So during the course of the game, your dudes can combine to form different forms and have different abilities and stuff. My theory is that they would have liked to do it as a miniatures game, but just couldn't because of cost.
Mm-hmm.
So it is just kind of a standalone board game with these robot little cardboard standees. But the way they did the combining system was pretty clever. And I don't know if the balance is great or not, no idea. But there's a clever element there that I think was done well on kind of would have been a miniatures game side of things if they were able to raise enough funds to do miniatures, but unfortunately they weren't. On the more board gamey side of things, there is a dice-based semi-board game-ish thing that came out recently called Sagrada.
Wow.
They've got a dice drafting system that's pretty cool. They've got just a lot of their mechanics just come together really well. Almost a little bit of a worker placement vibe to it in terms of placing your dice. So some neat things that they did there as well. So many people are doing so many brilliant things. I could probably just go on and on and on. In the Spiel des Jahres this year, Game of the Year, which is a German game award, as you might have guessed from Spiel des Jahres.
Yep.
They had some fantastic games there this year. I looked at all of those to kind of see what was getting noticed and why.
Who won this year?
I cannot think of the name of it off the top of my head, but there was a deck building game kind of crossed with a race game. So simple, but it drew you in. Like you start playing it, even people who would go to just get a quick demo would be like, well, let's keep playing, because it had that element to it that just makes you want to play more, which is hard to define, but so important.
Excellent. Looking forward. I'll have to take a look at that, because usually if you win the Spiel des Jahres, you've probably got a pretty good product on your hand. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Game Award, I mean, this is the same award that games like Ticket to Ride have won. God, I've got a whole bunch of them here behind me that were.
Right.
And it's
well, even being nominated is such an honor, but then the winners, yeah.
Yep. Pretty completely off the hook. Cool.
So, you mentioned a couple things that are on Kickstarter. How do you feel about that? Because myself, I've Kickstarted a couple of things. Of course, I've been part of the group that was burned by Robotech Tactics, which I really hate because I love Robotech, and I'm still waiting for all my stuff. How does that affect, since you're on the other end of it, working with different companies, how do you feel Kickstarter has helped or hurt the board game, miniature game community?
So I'm going to read off a couple of Spiel des Jahres winners real quick and then answer that. We've got stuff like Codenames, Dixit, Dominion, Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne, Catan, like games you've heard of.
Little tiny games you've never heard of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Kickstarter is such an interesting one because what it has wound up being is quite a bit different from, I think, what it was intended to be, kind of what the vision for it was. Early on, when people talked about Kickstarter, what they would say is, oh, this is a way to give people who wouldn't have the funds to create a game or whatever, a product, the opportunity to see if there's a market for it and get the money to kickstart that effort, and then to be able to put that product out there for people. But what it's kind of morphed into is almost a sales system rather than a creative system.
Yeah.
We see companies that even are established companies that have never used Kickstarter before trying their hand at doing a Kickstarter because of that element of being able to have such a larger share of the profit go to them rather than the distributor and the retailer. Congo the Jorgaman mentions that some companies have kind of turned it into a no-risk pre-order system. And that's one way to look at it. But it's not the only way to look at it, because the other part of that is that with that comes this whole concept of stretch goals and of community involvement and of social media aspects of it. And so I think whether it is an existing company or a new company, I think the real key to Kickstarter is making the most of these elements that are unique to Kickstarter, of truly engaging the community with Dark Souls, that being the first board game that Steamforged Games ever did. They did go the Kickstarter route, but there was a lot of community involvement. Even though I wasn't there from the very beginning, I was still involved in parts of that where people said, this thing was previewed on a Kickstarter update, this particular game mechanic, and for whatever reasons, I don't like it. Well, I don't like it. And when you get enough feedback and enough different voices that are almost helping develop the game, it goes beyond just, it's a pre-order system. It's a way to cut out the middleman. That's true, but it's not the whole picture. So to me, Kickstarter is a very positive thing when it's used in the right way and for the right purposes. I don't think it should be used just for getting extra money out of an expansion or trying to get the maximum profits. But when it comes to really engaging the community and allowing them to be part of the process, that's where I think it can shine. And I think those projects, it never really feels like people are trying to rip you off or they're just trying to make a quick buck, but it feels like this experience that we're sharing together.
Makes sense. Now, I don't know if you can. Were not part of? Were you at Steamforged when they first started working on the on Dark Souls?
Not during the Kickstarter and the initial kind of almost like tech demo or prototype demo, but right about the time the Kickstarter ended is when I got involved.
Okay.
I was already working with them on Shadow Games, and they brought me on kind of at the tail end of the Dark Souls Kickstarter to start doing some work with them on the Dark Souls board game. And mostly it's been Alex Hall and I who have done the vast majority of the work on, even as far back as for the core set, but on every single expansion for sure.
I was just curious as to maybe why they decided to go with Kickstarter for the board game after they had. Was it because board gaming was such a different execution than their miniature side?
Well, they had not done a licensed property before. They'd just done their own world in Guild Ball. Licensed properties also bring their own risks, which could lead to a whole nother topic about Kickstarter, because when you have a license, often there's a minimum amount that you need to make for that company to say, okay, you officially have the license, or otherwise you could lose that money. So if there is some big chunk of money on the table, it can be more of a risk for a game company to try to do it.
Got it.
So if they do it via Kickstarter, they won't go into producing it and losing their shirts on a project because they're going to owe all of that money back to the owner of the IP. Not saying anything specific about like how exactly that can or should be set up. That again is its own big, long, involved conversation.
Sure.
But doing a board game, doing their, at the time, was the earliest plastics production for them, because they'd only done metal and resin before that. So a new medium in terms of the game, a new medium in terms of the production material, a new sort of deal in terms of working with a licensed property, a lot of variables, a lot of question marks, and you got to make sure that the project has enough interest that it will be financially viable.
Makes sense.
Because the last thing they wanted to do is be like, all right, we're going to roll the dice on this and wind up having to close the doors, and then all the people who were playing Guild Ball have kind of lost their community. So it made a lot of sense, I think, to take that in a Kickstarter route. But as you'll see, for some of the other expansions and stuff we've announced, we haven't done that.
Nope.
Because we know now what that license looks like. We know now that there is enough interest in the game, so it's not necessary.
Got it. Well, I appreciate it.
About a copy.
DC, I've always appreciated when you've come on the show because you bring such a perspective on the business side of it that, a lot of us aren't privy to. So I really appreciate that.
Should we talk about some movies?
Well, by God, I think we probably ought to. Let me go ahead and switch over to the media section here. I'm sorry that John couldn't get things to work on his computer here tonight because, John really is the star of the show here when it comes to the movie section. I am going to continue to paint.
He did message me and he said, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill somebody. But
I hope he doesn't kill anyone.
Next week, I think next week him and I are going to work on it and try to work out the bugs before the next one.
Yeah, I hope so, because I certainly, it would not be the last episode of Painting with Menoth John without the mighty right hand of the podcast. I'll tell you that. So I'll tell you. How do you want to do this, Gonzo? What do you want to start with for movies? Should I go ahead and talk about Valerian, or what do you want to talk about?
Well, your show. I want to hear about Valerian because I'm actually really interested in it. Because to me, it seems really freaking cool.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. This is gonna be a spoiler-free treatment, of course, of Valerian. So for those of you who don't know, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is was based on a French comic or graphic novel, I should say. And the basic synopsis that we've all seen kind of read out to us is that Valerian and his partner, who is a female person whose name I cannot remember and it's hard to pronounce, and I think it's Lorian or something like that, are basically space cops from the future. And the premise of the movie is that man has reached out into space. There's this space station called Alpha, which is they do a wonderful job of setting up how well Alpha comes to be in the first part of the movie. And this movie is by Luc Besson. And Luc Besson is a name you should recognize from such movies as Lucy and also, of course, The Fifth Element. And if there's one thing that Luc Besson gets is putting style on the screen. And this is no disappointment. He has created a universe with that the space station has all kinds of different species, humans, all kinds of different aliens, and has done a great job creating the practical special effects that, if you remember from Fifth Element, were somewhat comical to look at, but very, very rich and awesome. And he's just knocked it out of the park. It is Speed Racer level color on this thing. This is not like watching a Batman movie where everything is, what shade of green would you prefer? And this is all the oranges and purples and yellows and greens, and just there is a race in this movie that Avatar wishes their blue dudes were this cool. And I will tell you I'm not going to give any spoilers on it. I would say that the movie it's 2 hours and 12 minutes long, and I didn't feel like it was poorly paced. It probably could have been about 20 minutes shorter and accomplished just as much. Some of the movie is given over to Luc Besson wants to show you this and wants to create and just immerse you in a visual experience. And folks, if you go into this movie realizing that you're watching a visual experience that has some plot to it, I think you're going to be very happy. I don't know that the story is terribly deep. I don't know that it has to be. It's a visual roller coaster filled with cool people. I think the guy that plays Valerian does a great job. The gal that plays his partner does an amazing job. Is a very strong female character. Belinda Librarian was a little unhappy that she did not get equal billing on there. That they could have very easily have made it Valerian and what's her face's name? God, I can't remember her name, and I feel terrible. Rather than because the comic book name actually has Valerian and her name in it. It's not Valerian in the City of a Thousand Cities. That you're looking it up right now, David, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Before I continue to butcher myself, but it's I'm going to give this one shot of Kraken, and the reason I'm going to give it one shot of Kraken is just to kind of get you into a little bit of a mood to be Loreline. Thank you. Valerian and Loreline was the name of the comic. And I really, I know Rave Bomb saw it. I saw some comments from him on there. This is interesting. It's showing no viewers on Twitch. I don't believe that. So
mine's showing 13 at the moment.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good number.
The actress is Cara Delevingne. She was Enchantress in wow, words.
In
That
Suicide
movie
Squad?
yeah, in Suicide Squad, and she
Oh,
was
wow.
Margot in Paper Towns.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. God damn, she's beautiful. Um, and she did a great job in there. But the thing that I think was interesting, and Belinda pointed this out, is that none of the characters were over the top super people. I mean, they were talented, they were athletic, but they were it's not like they were big hulking, 1% of the, a hundredth of a percent human beings. You weren't watching The Rock. You weren't watching, these. I mean, Valerian was kind of a small dude, and
Right.
about the same size as Laureline, and they were just really competent at what they did. So, like I said, one shot of Kraken just because it's super fun to have one shot, and then go watch the movie, and you're gonna love it. It's never gonna get a sequel because it's doing shitty in the box office, and I hope it's got to do better in Europe because it's metric. So maybe the reason it's not doing well in the United States is it's too metric for the people.
Yeah, China really likes those visual spectacle movies, typically.
Yeah, and so I will be in Shanghai the second week of August. So we'll see if it's in China. Shit, I'll go see it with the Chinese. I'll tell every person from China that I see, and there's like a few billion of them. I'll tell them, you go see this movie. So if you're Chinese and you're listening to me right now, you watch this fucking movie. You're gonna love it. So there you go. That's my spoiler-free review of Valerian and Laureline. I'm gonna give it its real name. That's what I'm gonna call it from now on.
That is a good name.
It's a very good name. It's at least as good as John Carter, and we know how well that movie did. And we love that movie. So anyhow, what about you, Gonzo? What do you got?
I did watching of a lot of series this week.
Seriously? Sorry.
I didn't watch hardly any movies, but one movie I did watch because I was sitting there kind of flipping around. I'm like, hey, I got to do some stuff, but I want to hear something. And I turned it on, and I'm like, okay, I can't do my stuff, was Hot Fuzz. I had to watch Hot Fuzz, and I couldn't do anything but watch Hot Fuzz. There's something about those two guys in Hot Fuzz and their shows that they do together that just cracks me up. If you haven't seen it, you got to if you like good comedy. It's got some great one-liners, great stuff on it. It's one of those movies where if I see it on, I'm going to stop and just watch it. Sort of like Fifth Element. Fifth Element's that way with me too. If Fifth Element's on, or Big Trouble in Little China, it's a stop, do what I'm doing. I'm watching this because I enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
But I caught up on a lot of TV shows. Killjoys and Dark Matter. Those are the ones I've been catching up on because I've been missing those episodes. So it was a lot of catching up on TV series this week than movies. So nothing new. Nothing new came out for me. So it was just catching up on old stuff.
Yep.
Sorry.
Go see Valerian and Laureline. Go watch that movie.
I've seen the previews for it and the trailers, and I'm like, this looks balls fun.
Oh yeah, it's
and that's what I'm expecting from it. I'm not expecting Academy Awards. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just looking for some balls good fun time show.
Yep, absolutely. DC, what have you seen lately that has tickled your fancy?
Well, the new thing that I saw was Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh yeah, I have not seen that yet.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought that there were some aspects of it that the way they did it was very clever and interesting. As the reviews have all pointed out, the villain was one of the best superhero movie villains that you could name. Typically, the focus is so squarely on the hero that the villain just kind of is a plot device rather than a character that has any real personality or emotion behind them. And that was one of the things that Spider-Man: Homecoming did quite well. I will say that in a vacuum, showing up and going to watch a fun Spider-Man movie, I'd say one shot of Kraken just to grease the wheels.
Yep.
I will say that if you're a huge Marvel Extended Universe fan, you might want another shot or so. Because Spider-Man Homecoming, while it's in the Marvel Extended Universe, there are several moments where you're kind of left wondering, why aren't any of the other people in this universe involved right now? Because this is more serious than I would leave to some high school kid.
Well, there you go. So, no, leave it to the new guy. He's got it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with DC. It was a really good one. But like I said last week, my biggest problem was he wasn't smart-ass enough. But that's kind of how I view my Spider-Man, as a smart-ass. So...
Did you guys already do this last week? I didn't quite get to the end of last episode.
No. I talked about it just for a little bit, and I thought it was really cool. I loved the whole thing, and I like everything you said. It's just from a personal standpoint. I've been reading Spider-Man comics since forever, and I like the PG-13, smart-ass remarks he gives, and that was really missing it for me.
I think that still fits my big picture comment on it. I think if you're a super casual superhero fan or Spider-Man fan, or even just barely interested in it and want to just have some fun, you probably won't find a single thing to criticize. But for people who've been a lot more involved in Spider-Man comics or in Marvel comics or in the Marvel Extended Universe or whatever, you might find a few bones to pick, which is good and bad. I mean, we're passionate for a reason, because we care about these things.
Yep.
Since we've got a few minutes, I'm gonna steal a little more time here, and got a couple more movies to mention briefly.
Man, we love it when we love it when we have guests on that add content. Holy shit, that's what we love you, man. Rave on, brother, rave on.
We just had Matt Hart and Alex Hall here from Steamforge Games. We were doing some work, and they were here last week for a while. And so one of the things, after we'd done a long, hard day of game development, such a tribulation that I know you guys all are glad you didn't have to be part of, we then would, in the evening, would watch one movie before heading to bed. And so typically it was something that either they didn't really have on Netflix in England, or that they'd never heard of. So I was trying to pick some obscure Netflix gems, at least in my opinion.
Turkish Star Wars.
One of them didn't translate very well to the English audience, and that was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. The movie was made incredible by the fact that Jess was watching with us, and she cannot stop laughing at Tucker and Dale. So that's I have more fun watching her watch that movie than actually watching it. But apparently rednecks are kind of America sort of thing. And the whole cabin in the woods slasher movie sort of feel didn't translate well. They didn't get why it was clever. But that was one that I think it's a fun movie. And then we also watched Odd Thomas, which based on the Dean Koontz book, kind of supernaturally sort of movie, and just I really enjoy the characterization of the main character and his girlfriend, and the way they kind of weave that story together. And don't want to spoil the ending, but just a fun show in some ways, but also can punch you in the feels a little bit too.
Cool.
I was pleasantly surprised with that movie, because I saw it also on there. I was like, oh, what's this? I know who this actor is in this book. And I watched it and I was like, damn, that was a lot better than I thought it was.
Yeah. It's one of those movies where they chose the right parts of the book to stay true to and to adapt. So often people try to stay too true to the wrong parts of the book. And I think doing that well is such a critical thing to really make the movie hum.
It's interesting you bring up the point of what parts of a book to follow and what parts to adapt. When we were watching the trailers that were a part of Valerian, one of the trailers was The Dark Tower, And I have never read the Dark Tower books. And but I know that Belinda has, and her brother, I guess, is a big fan. And she was calling bullshit left and right on that trailer around wait a second, that's not the Dark Tower, and that's not Gunslinger, and what's going on with this. So I don't know. I don't really have a horse on this one because I've never read it. It looked plenty fun to me, but it may be going off the reservation with respect to the book.
Yeah, which brings us back to the Spider-Man discussion a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And so Dark Tower is not the books. But I mean, we can't leave the movie section if we're going to talk about this subject with talking about the movie that was most off the rails from the book, literally of any movie ever made, and that's World War Z. That is literally okay. The only thing it had in common with the book was there were zombies in both, and they had a title,
and
they had the name. That's it. Two things that were about that book, and that's about it. So. I don't know.
I think if you want to stay really true to the source material, you need something like Battleship, the movie.
Oh God, yeah. You know, I remember when they were sitting there, they plopped those pegs down in the ship. That ship was fucked. Let me tell you what. You can take a peg or two, but that third and fourth one, done.
Yep.
Done.
That'll do you.
Holy crap. Oh, that was bad.
I think that just ended the media section right there. I don't even know where to go from there. But I'll tell you what. Go ahead. What, Gonzo?
You could talk about the Comic-Con trailers, man.
Oh, talk about them. Go ahead.
Oh, there's been some, like the new Justice League Comic-Con trailer that came out. They had like a 4-minute trailer for this movie. If you haven't seen it, you've got to go. Just do a San Diego Comic-Con search for trailers and see a lot of cool movies that are coming out. Stranger Things new trailer came out. Can't wait. Thor trailer came out. Justice League looked really good.
I'm worried that if they showed 4 minutes of Justice League, they've spoiled all the best parts of the movie.
I'm with you on that, but it looks really good. Westworld, the new Star Trek one, Ready Player One, which I know a lot of people are very vested in because the book was is a lot of people's interest.
I'm super excited. I don't know if it was at Comic-Con, but I saw that The Expanse got its 3rd season. That's super legit.
Nothing on there right now. The new Pacific Rim.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ghosts. Yeah.
Atlantic Rim.
No, not Atlantic Rim. That's different.
Well, there's going to be a new Atlantic Rim now.
Shut the fuck up. That's okay. First off, that is the cancer that's killing movies. Man, Atlantic Rim. God, that movie is so. I'm going to say a sentence that no man should ever say. My God, Turkish Star Wars is such a better movie than that. Such a better movie. That's more information than we needed, Rave Bomb. And I'm not even going to say what that was. So, more than we needed. But it's okay, yeah, Comic-Con. I hear it's a big deal. They announced shit there. Awesome.
Look at the trailers.
And I lived vicariously through Ross Thompson's Facebook feed. Man, that dude's got a better life than all of us combined. All of us.
No kidding.
I don't know if I personally would want my life changing that much that fast.
Man.
But he has packed a whole lot of living into his far fewer than you or I have years.
Man. I look back at that and go, I'd think I'd be dead. I'm
a machine.
I'm pretty sure I'd be dead by that age. And he's just keep on going. He's beating people over the head with boffer swords and then taking literally 1,000 pictures a day. Every one of them has a different beer in his hand. Don't know how his liver's made it this long. So. Well, shit. It's 8:26 and I hear Khaleesi's name calling me in the distance. Game of Thrones, bitches. If you're not watching Game of Thrones, I can't help you. But I'm going to put some music on here because that's what we do at the end of these shows. Let's go. Oh, there it is. There's the music. Only heard that 200 times. All right, folks. You know, David, thank you so very much for being on the show, making the second to the last episode just a whole lot more special. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, and thank you for having me on the show tonight and so many other nights in the past. Thanks for doing the Joy at Playing series with me. That was a great time. And I'll see you around at various shows and stuff in the future. Always looking forward to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's been question marks as to whether I was like giving up the game of War Machine and Hordes and shit like that. No, I'm not giving up the game of War Machine and Hordes or 40K or any other games. I'm reclaiming my Sundays. That's what I'm doing. Gonzo, thanks again for being with us here tonight. On behalf of the Irrational One, I'm Menoth John. We got one more to do, folks, and it's going to be fucking epic. It's going to be next week. We're going to have Beer Machine Rich. We're going to be talking about Retribution. If you don't like that, tough shit. It's last episode. We're going to do it anyway. We'll see you next time. We'll be back 6:30 for the fucking around, and then 7 o'clock for the big show. So join us. What else are you going to do? Good night, everybody.